Hey there, folks. This is Kevin Madison from Project Dragonfly. I hope you enjoy this podcast about Dragonfly community members doing inspiring work. If you have ideas for a guest or want to be more involved in this podcast, please feel free to directly email me. Thanks again for listening and enjoy the episode. This week, I had the honor of speaking with Adam Kerins. Adam is a 2022 graduate of the Global Field Program through Project Dragonfly in Miami University. And he is the executive director of the Turtleback Zoo located in New Jersey. I actually caught up with Adam at the AZA conference in Columbus recently, and we started talking about leadership in zoos and aquariums and how he ended up in his role as executive director. And I thought this conversation would be of interest to many Dragonfly students and alumni who maybe are thinking about that kind of career trajectory as well. In his work, Adam reports to a board of trustees, and he develops advocacy and support for the Turtleback Zoo, which is one of the fastest growing zoos in the country. And we talk about how he uses time in Dragonfly to travel to Baja and Namibia, but also to develop skills that would help him in this position. Uniquely, Adam also holds an MBA, and we talk about fundraising and how he is using that to support conservation internationally as well. So, and the last thing I'll say is that Adam has also received an Emerging Leader Award from the Center of Nonprofits and a fellowship from LEAD NJ, New Jersey. So anyway, we hope you enjoy this conversation with Adam. All right, Adam, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. So we recently were meeting at the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums annual meeting in Columbus, Ohio. And it was great to reconnect as someone who graduated from Dragonfly and also has a pretty substantial leadership role with zoo, the Turtleback Zoo in New Jersey. So I want to ask you about your journey to get to that place of leadership, because I think it'll resonate with a lot of our current students and alumni. But also, and I guess before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about the Turtleback Zoo?
Sure. I'll back it up even a little bit further, but it was really great to see some of my quote unquote heroes over at the Dragonfly Happy Hour. Some of these people that you've been hearing about for years and years and years, and it was fun to have an old fashioned with them, and I appreciate the time. Yeah, it's been great at Turtleback Zoo. I've been here 12 years. Over that span, the zoo has come a long way. I mean, in the mid-90s, we almost closed a couple times, and the administration invested in it. They created new positions. I was hired around 2010, 2011, and since then, we've become one of the fastest growing zoos in the country. We've quadrupled attendance, tripled membership, quadrupled annual revenue, to the point now that we're projecting about 1 million visitors a year, which is a real success story when it comes to zoos. So it's a lot of effort. It's a great team over here, and we kind of get overshadowed by places like the Bronx, which is probably 20 minutes away. I feel like if you're Project Dragonfly and you're going for an AIP retreat, you're going to the Bronx Zoo instead of visiting us at Turtleback Zoo, right, Kevin?
Yes, and I know next time I'm out there, I'm going to definitely have to get a Turtleback Zoo.
So
but
love to have you sometime.
You say it's 20 minutes away, but I imagine through the bridges and the traffic and everything, it's probably a lot more convenient for people in parts of New Jersey to get to your location.
That's right. I mean, our marketing radius is about 20 miles. So that's who we really focus on. And that goes right to the edge of New York. We do get some carryovers. A lot of Staten Island's people come over, but yeah, we have a decent market that comes to the zoo. So we got to get to 1 million attendees somehow.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's ambitious. But there are a lot of people out there in the Northeast.
That's right.
Cool. So I know you were just telling me also that there was like before we started recording, like a media team at the zoo today. And so maybe just if you can give us a window into the everyday operations that are happening at the Turtleback Zoo and what kind of things with media that are
Sure.
happening.
Yeah, so we've had this on the calendar for a while, and I walked in this morning and there was a full camera crew, there was lights and a podium and everything, and I figured Kevin had a lot of resources and this podcast was going all over the world at that point. But we actually had the American Kennel Club is shooting something with us. We're lucky enough to, just like some of the zoos that you work with, specifically Cincinnati and Columbus, we have an exhibit for our cheetah, and we include a dog in it. So we have a yellow lab named Bowie. He joins Namdi, our cheetah, and it's really cool to get them to see them interact. And it also tells the story of how, you know, how cheetahs are skittish, but at the same time, I liken it back to one of my trips through the GFP program was to the Cheetah Conservation Fund. So we're able to tell that story about how dogs protect the local farmers and those kind of things. And yeah, it's a really great conversation point. So it's something that we went over this morning.
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect way to get the dog lovers interested, the American Kennel Club, like you said.
Oh yeah.
So, okay. So in thinking about your GFP journey, your global field program journey, like, so you went to Namibia. What were the other trips you went on with the program?
My first trip, I applied for Belize, but you guys didn't like me enough to put me there, so I went to Baja, and I actually really thoroughly enjoyed Baja, and I'm so glad that I went there. Always thought, going the furthest place is probably going to be the most new experience, most challenging experience, and that's what I was really looking to get out of the GFP program. And then, you know, going to Baja, sleeping, on the cots and having that kind of experience was probably the best kind of introductory experience possible for the program. Lots of great people, the owners of the ranch and the Vermilion Sea Institute, just really cool people. And I could have stayed weeks on end if possible.
Well, and I don't know if you've seen that the Vermilion Sea Institute is having it's like a 60th anniversary of running field courses, I believe it
Oh,
is.
nice. Yeah.
And 60 or maybe 50. But they have rented a large boat that they will be chartering to take people down on diving trips in the Gulf of California and ending up at Bahia de los Angeles and with whale sharks. So anyway, there's that story of that course continues to unfold in really amazing ways.
It's great. I loved my experience there. We were actually the EE group that had rattlesnakes come through camp. I don't know if you heard much about that. Yeah. So that was the theme of the the entire trip. That was pretty great. We saw rattlesnakes in camp, rosy boa on one of the hikes. It was just a really cool experience. Yeah.
Cool
and then
snake.
Of course the whale sharks and the mega pods of dolphins, which were just incredible as well.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
I hope we don't scare people with the idea of rattlesnakes through the camp. But it is interesting, like that ranch and how remote it is. But you do get these amazing wildlife experiences. Obviously, they don't want to, they don't want to mess with us. But
and no worries, it was the non-venomous rattlesnakes in the
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know about those.
Okay. I don't know that I don't know that I had made that fully if that had fully connected with me, that they had some non-venomous ones there.
They don't. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Oh, all right. I'm like, what? There are some cool endemic snakes in the Sea of Cortez there in the Gulf of California that have, evolved in some rather unique ways, like either becoming much larger or much smaller due to the island evolution on islands often directs species in that way. So
yeah.
Anyway, but I've never gotten out to those islands out there. It's just anyway. So that's great. I'm glad that trip, and I know a lot of our students they Belize, perhaps when they're looking at their choices, they go with that one because it seems further away, like you said. But then ultimately Baja is such an amazing course. Both courses you really can't lose. And then now our other our third course for first year students is Brazil, which is amazing. One on focus on gold mine tamarins.
Oh, that's amazing.
So okay, so Namibia, Baja, and then what was your third location?
My third one was actually it was going to be Namibia. I had signed up for Namibia twice, and the first one was canceled. And we weren't able to take part with COVID. And then the second time I signed up for Namibia, it was canceled 10 days out, and that was kind of interesting. So I just finished the course, and we did like a connected conservation kind of
Gotcha
on that one.
Gotcha.
Yep. So yeah, Namibia was third time's the charm, and I finally got into it, and that was probably my favorite trip. Just being there in that country and seeing the wildlife and being part of a cause with the CCF and the Cheetah Conservation Fund and meeting Lori Merker, that was phenomenal.
Yeah. That trip, I've instructed that course, and it's absolutely amazing to hear about all the unique ways they're trying to find some financial incentives for people in the area, and thinking about cheetahs. And I don't know if you guys had any amazing wildlife encounters there, but for us it was, and I guess we'll just go with the theme of perhaps frightening wildlife encounters that are also super inspiring. But we would walk back to that camp, and at night from the main classroom area at the Cheetah Conservation Fund, and several times you would see leopard prints on the sand there as you were walking. And even in the distance past this fence, you could see like these glowing green eyes. That possibly a leopard or possibly something else. But so
ground
amazing
squirrel.
To be in. A venomous
venomous ground squirrel. We had when we were at CCF, we did that 20-year study. So we were in the hide at one of the water holes, and we got there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was great to be there. It was a little cold, and my classmate Allie and I were stuck in the hole, and in the hide, and we just hear this growling behind us, and we're behind this flimsy door, that's just pure cloth. And we ended up stacking chairs in front of the door because we were convinced it was a leopard, but who knows, maybe it was one of those loud ground squirrels. We just don't know yet. But that's what we always talk about, that. And we also got charged by a warthog, which was pretty awesome. So I ran the fastest I have in 20 years back to the bus. And meanwhile, my friend Katie just stood there and pointed at them. And I don't know, she's like Moses, because they just diverted on both sides. She split the warthogs. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, just incredible experiences. It's once in a lifetime.
Yeah. And I'll be the public service announcement that will say you're in more danger driving on the New Jersey Turnpike than you are on these courses.
Why has it got to be the New Jersey Turnpike?
Just for you, Adam.
Appreciate it.
I could say the Cross Bronx Expressway as well.
There you go. Yeah.
So what about your sort of leadership? Getting into this leadership role, I mean, tell us about your job. You are the executive director, but I know this is a county-owned zoo. So what does that entail, and how did you get into that position?
I would like to say I lucked into it, but I've been thinking about it, and it's been a lot of small cumulative steps, and that got me here. So I looked to the Dragonfly program because I didn't have a huge background in biology. So I was health behavior management, which was kind of an offshoot of biology, an undergrad program. But I took an internship while I was in undergrad, and it was like a sports management. I worked for like a branch of the NFL, National Football Foundation. We ran the College Football Hall of Fame, and it was a great internship. And it got me into nonprofits, and I always enjoyed working for a cause. And I did pretty well there. Did so well that I kind of put myself out of business because I raised money for them to move the Hall of Fame down to Dallas or down to Atlanta, and I wasn't going to go with them. So been working with nonprofits for a while. I interviewed with the Staten Island Zoo, which I was coming off of a children's hospital gig, and did pretty well there, and wasn't sure about the potential of working for zoos. I love zoos. One of my earliest memories is I was one of the my first memory at a zoo is I was a Code Adam, fittingly for my namesake, at the San Francisco Zoo because I wanted to run around and see some of the primates, and my parents had no idea where I was. So I shut down the gates at that zoo. Um, but going from
Wait. Sorry.
I
What
jumped
is
too
that?
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? What is the code? What is the code, Adam? What is?
Oh, I didn't know this is a okay. So in zoos, Code Adam usually means there's a lost child. And
Okay.
so if there's a lost child, parents typically go to the guest service representative and they shut down the zoo. And meanwhile, I'm just, sucking on a lollipop looking at gibbons and thinking it's the best day ever, and probably causing untold hurt for the attendants for that day. But yeah, that's my first zoo experience.
Okay,
And
got it.
then
For some reason,
yeah,
I wasn't sure if you were implying you had ended up in an exhibit. So I'm glad. All
yeah,
right,
yeah.
got it. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Code Adam meaning Adam gets in the exhibit. That'd be fun. We
Yeah.
so I've always loved zoos. It's so going to the Staten Island Zoo, I'd actually told them no a couple times. And then a funny story is I came over and they said, walk around the park one more time. And I did that. And they said, have you met Jim Carrey before? And I had never met Jim Carrey before. Jim Carrey being from Ace Ventura fame, who I was a
Yep,
fan
sure.
of,
Yeah.
growing up in the 80s, 90s. And he introduced him and I said, where do I sign? So
Yeah.
I took the job immediately after that, got into the zoo industry, and I'm very mission driven. So as soon as I got in, I bought in. So I bought into the wildlife conservation front, really went to, tried to learn as much as I could. And then moved over to Turtleback Zoo when I figured out the hour and a half commute was too long, and Turtleback Zoo
Mm.
was on kind of an
Hmm.
upswing for us and saw the potential there. And again, dedicated myself, if this is going to be my cause, I want to go all in. So been learned from some fantastic people, have some great colleagues. The administration here is fantastic. So it's kind of developed me into the zoo professional that I am now. But the probably the biggest step for me was joining the Dragonfly program because I realized that was a weakness. I'm good at running nonprofits. I'm good at raising money, marketing, those kind of things, dealing with people. It's things I enjoy and I'm decent at. But the biology aspect of it, the wildlife conservation, the inquiry part, the science, I could get
Mm.
better at. And thankfully, Dragonfly helped me out with all those. So I think I'm definitely better at my position now.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I think actually for many people that might be listening, you having that fundraising and nonprofit experience is great. And that track record where you had, been successful at raising money
Mhm.
for the College Football Hall of Fame, I think you said, or
Yeah, College Football Hall of Fame. I was
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Children's Specialized Hospital, which is
Yeah.
a rehab hospital for kids,
Mm.
great causes, and then going to the zoo and finding out the cause there. I mean, once you get a cause you're passionate about, it's easy to raise money. That's
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, so for people that don't have that kind of track record, like and nevertheless want to get into some sort of leadership role, do you think that's critical to have that track record, or how would you build that if you're just getting started and you haven't done any fundraising program
Yeah.
building?
That's a good question. And some things I went for my master's before Dragonfly in business as well. So you called it before, we were chatting a little bit before this podcast started, and it was, I'm a lifelong learner. That's something I always want to be
Mm.
dedicated to, is always bettering myself. But for in my MBA classes, I went through strategic planning processes, and I realized that that not only applies to your organization, but it could apply to yourself. So finding out what your mission is for yourself, your goals and objectives, and trying to frame what your career is going to look like, and having benchmarks that you can hit, down the road. That's helped me out. Another thing that I've relayed onto others seeking the same kind of advice is knowing what their KPIs are, so their key performance indicators. So if you have a supervisor that is you might not be on the same page with, but if you have quantifiable metrics saying that I did this, I did this, I did this, and you blow all your goals and objectives out of the water, nobody can argue with you. You know, you're going to do fantastic. So you can push that to whoever, and it really helps in planning your career going forward. Is one, planning these different milestones, and then two, hitting them, and that's been pretty helpful for me.
Nice. Yeah, and I actually think we have a lot in Project Dragonfly of lifelong learners, people that have done multiple certificates or masters, but I think you having that MBA plus now a Master of Arts in Biology from Dragonfly and Miami University, and then what was your undergraduate in again, and from where?
It was health behavior management, so it was a BS, but it was more specific to health and recreation, a little bit of tourism, which kind of helps in my job now. But yeah, it was mostly anatomy, physiology, rather than anything zoo related or MBA related.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And you're currently looking into another program, right, as well?
Yeah. I don't want to jump the gun just in case it doesn't work out. But again, lifelong learner. I'm looking at different doctoral positions and talking to a couple different labs on what it would look like. I do have a 4-year-old at home, so that kind of limits my options. And I mean, again, going back to Dragonfly, that's something that really worked out, is the scheduling and the way we can do work at home and then present and have these online meetings, and then only having to set aside 10 days where my wife wants to kill me during the summer. So it worked out really well that way. So I've been recommending that program and the scheduling of that program to everybody I meet.
Yeah, we're not trying to like rip people's family lives apart with this program, and I think compared to a lot of grad programs where you either got to relocate and you got to, the assumption is full time, and that just completely puts your career on hold. There's so many reasons that it makes more sense to do this as a part-time program like we have it set up. Although I know that's also a challenge. I mean, you got to have that level of energy where you can get home from work or caregiving or whatever you're doing in life and find motivation to do your assignments. How was that for you? I mean, you must have had your 4-year-old must have been just coming along right when you were in the middle of the program or starting the program.
Yeah, I had joined the program, was going on my Baja trip, and actually I think I was in my first semester prior to Baja, and found out we were pregnant. So that was an interesting time. So for a long time I didn't think I was going to continue with the program, just because we had a newborn. There's a lot of challenges around that time, and then shortly after we had COVID. So I mean, it was one struggle after the other, and I got to say, COVID was a devastating thing, but I kind of lucked out because it allowed me to catch my breath a little bit and take care of some of the work that I needed to for the Dragonfly program. And my facility was closed for 3-4 months. And with that, work lessened a whole lot. I didn't have people complaining about the lion sleeping every day. So, so I got to take a breather and really focus on some of the things that I was passionate about, like Dragonfly and becoming more educated and learning more about biology.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing how COVID, because I'm actually in the process right now of reading through capstone portfolios for the program. Yeah. And so many people are talking about how COVID, kind of the silver lining of that space to breathe and think about your life. And in some cases, get out in nature more often. It depends on your personal circumstances during that time. But a lot of people are reflecting on it and what it offered to them, even as it was just like you said, kind of horrible, difficult time. And so that's interesting to hear your perspective.
Yeah, certainly devastating, but there was a little silver lining, small silver lining.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I know, and also I'm thinking about, I was recalling your portfolio, and I know you talked a lot in it about zoos and their role as conservation centers, as places where conservation can be inspired locally and then globally. I mean, I'm curious what you might be initiating at the Turtleback Zoo, some programs or anything that's been inspired from some of your work on Dragonfly, or maybe just an offshoot of it, perhaps?
No, I could say a good part of my work is inspired by Dragonfly. So I've been here for 12 years, and obviously I haven't been in Dragonfly for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been interested in the wildlife conservation angle and getting our zoo up to modern zoo standards, and the animal welfare was taken care of. The education was blossoming. Research wasn't really there yet, but wildlife conservation probably needed the most work. So through Dragonfly, I mean, not only did I get to learn from some great professors but I also got to learn from students and classmates that do this for a living. So much more experience than I had at the time. And they were able to tell me a lot about their different programs. So at Turtleback, we developed, it's called the Turtleback Biodiversity Fund, and we based it on guidelines presented by AZA and learned from my colleagues and my classmates through Dragonfly. And now we have a full-fledged committee with bylaws and really standardized giving, and we partner with causes all over the world. So it's great. And part of the reason I wanted to go to Namibia was we granted them a significant amount of money each year. So going to see Laurie Merker, seeing my organization's money at work, that was fantastic. So now we have this $200,000 fund. We have lots of partners. We actually got an application for the Vermilion Sea Institute, which I think we're going to be funding. Pangolin Conservation Research Foundation, who is a classmate, is headed by a classmate of mine. So it's not only just learning from them, but the networking and keeping in touch really helped out as well. And then probably one of the things I'm most proud of is that for me, getting back to the KPIs, it's usually revenue, right? So I get judged on how much money I bring in, with the different kind of market initiatives, different kinds of things that makes the park succeed. So revenue, visitation, membership, those kind of things. So in my last AIP, or IAP, excuse me, I concentrated on a fundraising campaign or a membership campaign where we tied in a conservation initiative to the purchase of a membership. So every time somebody purchases a membership, we planted trees in honor of those people. And we networked with some great causes around the world. And we found a place in Africa that has a high need area for planting trees. And then we found a local place that did the same thing. And the visitors, the attendees, the members really flocked to it. So doing the statistical analysis, it was like it was the highest total of memberships ever for the zoo sold in a specific month. But it outpaced membership growth, it outpaced everything, and it was the only statistical significant month of membership growth that we've seen, so outside the standard of error. So I'm hoping I can credit it all to the campaign and everybody's interest in wildlife conservation, but we'll see. But at least it looks like that from the outside.
Well, it is literally does my heart good to hear you talking about that fund, that $200,000 fund from Turtleback Zoo and the conservation, and that it's being connected to these wonderful organizations through your networking within Dragonfly. And I will just say, if you ever want to promote that further, drop me a line and we will get it out to as many people as we can. And any other opportunities, I think, in general for that sort of thing. But I'm glad you talked about how you've been able to grow your audience and visitation to the zoo. Because I was kind of wondering, like, right now seems like it's actually a tough time for attendance at many zoos. So I was curious what you attributed your success. Is there anything else you think of?
We got lucky. I mean, we were one of the first zoos to open on the East Coast after COVID. So we had the eyes of the whole zoological community. All the New Jersey tourism and recreation was looking at us, and we did okay. It was tough. We had to do scheduling and everything like that, but we built up momentum there. People started coming to the park more, realized it was safe and comfortable and outdoor, and then that exposed us to a whole new group of people, and we've been growing since then. But to be honest, the administration here and the employees here have really invested a whole lot into the zoo. So we're under construction pretty much nonstop throughout the year, and we'll have a new exhibit pretty much every year. So it's fantastic for us, and it allows us to tell a great story. So we have some great things here. On the marketing side, that initiative was fantastic. We try to do others like it. There's something up your alley, Kevin, is we're doing a pollinator focus next year. So we're going to be focusing on supporting the Safe North American Monarch campaign with every membership purchase. And then we're also going to be giving out seeds for native butterfly bush. I don't remember the species completely, but so for every purchase, they get something to take home and hopefully plant and support pollinators, but also support the greater fund as well. So trying to find that cause and adding to the value proposition of membership sales and the zoo as in general is been pretty helpful for us to raise revenue.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's probably if it's like a native, maybe Asclepias tuberosa, which is the butterfly weed. Weed butterfly bush sounds nicer than butterfly weed.
Yeah. But I was actually going to say that Latin name. That was on the tip of my tongue.
That's great. And I think, yeah, the win-win, that's a really like pairing membership to actual, benefits to conservation. That's really, really powerful. That's great. So what new exhibits do you guys have on the way at this point?
Sure. We just opened 2. So we have an Asian exhibit. Our director here, Jillian, she's the head of the SSP for clouded leopards. And it's not really a coincidence that within the first year of being here, we had a new exhibit for clouded leopards. So that helped out pretty well. And then we have a new exhibit dedicated to island giants. So we have Komodo dragons, we have Aldabra tortoises, North American alligator. So those a lot of interesting exhibits there, but we're actually in the construction. We did a groundbreaking early in the week. We're creating a new hospital, and the animal hospital is going to be fantastic. I'm supposed to say it's the Animal Welfare Center. So the Animal Welfare Center is going to be great. It's going to be huge. We've grown so much over the last 10 years that we have some mega fauna now that probably wouldn't be able to get the full standard of care within our previous or current hospital. So building this new hospital is going to be great for the new animals that we have on exhibit. It's enormous. It costs way too much money. But the other thing is that it has glassed areas that our visitors can actually walk up and see the procedures being done. So again, addressing the modern zoo standards, it's not only animal welfare, but it's education at the same time. So people can learn and hopefully be inspired to be the future generation of wildlife conservationists.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing to be that transparent and being willing to be transparent. I do feel like that's a paradigm shift in zoos over the last decade or so. It seems like there's a willingness to share behind the scenes, to share animal care and all the details. It's not always pretty. It doesn't always work exactly how we want, but through that transparency, like you said, you can inspire future generations.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's amazing that many things are happening. I'm curious also about any takeaways you had from the AZA in Columbus since it's recent, and any thoughts about the wider zoo field and the evolution of zoos generally. Like, I know you have a lot of colleagues in working for different zoos and aquariums across the country. Like, what do you think people are talking about now and trying to address? What challenges, what possibilities are there if we think, like, who knows, 10 to 20 years down the road for zoos and aquariums?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question, but right now I think the industry is on the right path. So thinking about the evolution of modern zoos, we were talking about menageries back in England starting off with, and they were mostly there to parade wealth, and that kind of thought process came to the United States, and it wasn't about the animal welfare, it wasn't about education or conservation, it was just showing off animals. And now I think when we progressed into the 1970s, we get naturalistic environments in our exhibits, And the benefits were twofold. Not only does it make the animal happier and healthier, but it also starts exhibiting natural actions. So when you have or natural behaviors, so you have somebody, the visitor, watching an animal actually interacting with its environment instead of sleeping in a small cage, sort of thing. So that's been a great to see, and progressing. And we've always been headed up by these huge mega zoos, the Columbus Zoo, the San Diego Zoo, the Bronx Zoo, the WCS facilities. And I think it's really nice to see some of these medium and small level zoos really stepping up to the plate, not only in their welfare and the attractions that they offer and the exhibits they offer, but also their responsibility for wildlife conservation. They're going all out. So you can go to a conference like AZA and talk to somebody from a small 20-acre zoo, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I was in Africa last year doing some of the same stuff you were doing." So it's really nice to see that. You feel like a bigger community, and then at the same time, you feel like you're behind a cause much bigger than just your organization. So being a part of AZA, aligning with that cause, it's been really beneficial for me.
That's great. Yeah, and I think, with all of us being able to hop on Zoom now, and you can connect with someone across the country or at a larger or smaller zoo, and there's really no reason not to collaborate, right? I mean,
Yes.
we are, as you said, our impacts can be bigger when we work together. And we do have in Dragonfly quite a number of people, working for small and medium and rural located or zoos and aquariums, and they're making a huge difference for those communities. And also sometimes in some ways they might have less bureaucratic elements to deal with, and they might be able to trial some new initiative that then can be scaled out in other places.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I'm from New Jersey. I'm not going to touch the bureaucratic stuff.
Great. Okay. Well, I did want to just give you a chance. Like, is there anything else you like, again, with that person in mind that might be listening to this? You already gave some great advice on strategic planning and how to create narratives of fundraising and creative ways of doing that. But I mean, for someone who's looking to promote, get promotions and develop their career of leadership in zoos and aquariums, I mean, are there any other things you really would like to say to them or recommend in terms of a track to follow?
Sure. One thing that comes to mind besides the whole strategic planning stuff is going above and beyond. So there's expectations, exceeding those expectations, and making yourself uncomfortable. So I'm at a desk or going to lunch or meeting people, and it was a far cry from going and sleeping under the stars in Mexico or, sleeping in a tent in Namibia. And it was a great experience. It opened up my horizons. And if some of my future or my current classmates or anybody in the Dragonfly program has that kind of opportunity, not only in the Dragonfly program, but looking to expand their own horizons, if it makes you uncomfortable, then you're growing. So I'd totally say, take advantage of those opportunities and, for your own knowledge base or your own career pursuits, it's very beneficial. So I'd say make yourself uncomfortable and get your hands dirty.
Has that segued into you feeling more fearless in your everyday life? Like having those experiences, you think it's made you more willing to go outside of your comfort zone, just in general with your job and your life and at home?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. A couple of years ago, I don't think I would consider doing any of those things that we just mentioned, the being out in the Baja and those kind of things. I would have loved it. It's just dedicating the time and energy towards it. And being brave enough to do those kind of things, it's expanded my horizons. It's gave me the confidence to say, like, I've done this, maybe I can do something else, getting my hands a little dirty again. So those kind of things, making sure that I'm not limiting myself, has been big for my career, because when I find those limitations, breaking through, it's really beneficial for myself and my career.
Nice. I can only imagine the number of different issues that you run into on a daily
Yes.
basis.
Yeah. It's everybody complaining about the lions being asleep. Yeah, every day.
Yeah, every day. I know,
Every
right?
day. Yeah.
You,
That or
um,
somebody wants to donate a tortoise to us or a rabbit. So I get a lot of phone calls, but no, that's not really my day to day. But yeah, there's a lot of obstacles in the position. It's a political position. You have to know people. You have to get along with big personalities. So yeah, dealing with Dragonfly people, being outside, expanding my horizons that way, I think it was beneficial.
well, perfect. I want to thank you. This has been great, and I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy. It took us a while to find a time that would work for both of us. So thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and being a part of the podcast.
No, I appreciate it, Kevin, and definitely appreciate the Dragonfly program as a whole.
Hi there, folks. Just one more thing before you head on out. If you have a moment, as I mentioned at the beginning, I would love to hear in what ways you are finding this podcast useful, how you listen, what you would like to hear more of, less of, etc. Please feel free to send me any and all feedback, any ideas for guests, etc. to Kevin Madison at my email, which is mattiskc@miamioh.edu. That's spelled MATTESKC @miamioh.edu. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.